This is Lisa Henderson, editor for Applied Clinical Trials, and I'm here today with Dr. Linda Strause, Executive Director and Head, Clinical Operations, Vical, and research scientist and founder for the Institute of Palliative Medicine and San Diego Hospice IRB. Vical researches and develops biopharmaceutical products based on their patented DNA delivery technologies for the prevention and treatment of serious or life-threatening diseases, including cancer and infectious disease. Linda wrote an article that went through our peer review process, and it is being published next month in our March issue. However, this article isn't written from the perspective of Vical. Linda's article before press is titled Oncology Clinical Trials, Ethical Issues Pertaining to Subjects Facing Life-Threatening Disease, and is based on her personal experiences of her husband's diagnosis of glioblastoma, which is an extremely aggressive, highly vascularized, and incurable brain cancer. So, Linda, thank you for joining me today. Can you tell me the background on what made you decide to write this article?
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, the journey is a pretty difficult one, and this isn't the forum for talking specifically about the disease itself. However, it is an incurable form of cancer. It's also brain cancer, which makes the challenges quite difficult. So I had been writing as a part of the process. There's a few pages out there that people develop blogs to help stay connected with family and friends, and had been encouraged to write small, shorter articles that were really based on my personal story alone. But I think being in the research field, and specifically in oncology, I actually wanted to share some of the things I learned about why it's so difficult to get patients with cancer to actually enroll in clinical trials. The number hasn't changed in years. So I began preparing what I thought would be an appropriate article, more scientific in nature, for a peer-reviewed journal, and was introduced to you, actually, where we struggled a little bit with, how to put the scientific peer review part in a position with the personal story that made it important for other readers, not just the lay public.
I remember that. We did struggle with that. And when the peer review comments initially came in, we thought, after we talked, keeping the personal aspect was important. And the initial comments, some had to say that it didn't fit the tone of a typical peer review article that is normally run in our publication, and some felt that the personal opinion was not necessarily the place for applied clinical trials. But others had positive comments, such as, I like the article and the story behind it. It is a great subject, and I definitely think our readers will like this. Definitely a great thought process and an ethical question that requires answering. Interpretation to this issue is finally left to the readers. There will definitely be a great debate that I can foresee stemming from this article. Yes, it's different, not your typical fare, but I found it rather refreshing and thought-provoking. And Lord knows our industry can really use a reminder now and then that patients are at the center of our work. So, Linda, how did you find the overall process for peer review? Did you understand their hesitancy as well as their positive feedback?
I thought actually the process was wonderful, and I give you credit there because, as you recall, there was a point in time where I actually said, why don't I just take the whole personal story out? And even you said, no, I sort of like it. And so, we went out for some feelers where we received some off-the-record, if you will, comments. So I then proceeded with writing the articles, trying to stay focused on my scientific training and upbringing as a PhD, to, state the problems, state, what we learned, and state the findings, while mixing in some of my personal story. So, I did completely understand the editorial board's hesitation, and I'm a reader of Applied Clinical Trials, so I'm aware of their format. I personally thank them all, for their feedback, and I have to admit, in general, it was very positive. A lot of good, solid recommendations that I took to heart and inserted within the final draft of the article. It's my hesitation was grounded in really a lot of science and as well as my personal frustration. I always felt that as a clinical trial expert and having been in our industry for years, if anybody should have been able to get the person they loved into a clinical trial, it should have been me. I do patient recruitment. I'm well aware of the struggles we have enrolling cancer patients into clinical trials, and here I was, on that cusp of hope and science and trying to make those decisions. And I realized that they are very, very difficult ones, and our industry really needs to remember, as eloquently as the one gentleman said, it's about time our industry has a reminder that the patients are, the most important thing we do, and that's why we do what we do.